I'd like to bring the council this evening back to order and start with the consent calendar. Consent calendar contains items which are typically routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion of the council unless an item is removed for discussion by a member of the public, staff, or council. If you wish to discuss a consent calendar item, please come to the microphone. Hopefully that you've already put in a slip of paper to the clerk and state the number of the item you wish to discuss. Your name will be called and you'll come to the podium and speak, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Sarah, was there anybody who wished to speak from the public? Is there anybody from the staff that wishes to speak? Pull an item or council? Hearing none. Hear a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve it.
Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Next item is number 15. Item 15, successor agency consent calendar. Can I just move approval? Okay, I move approval.
Second.
We have approval and a second. Please vote. That button's not working. Broken? Yeah, it works.
There we go.
And that passes 5-0. Now we come to the communications from the public. Anyone who wishes to address the council regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Please, hopefully you've completed a request to speak form and given to the city clerk. Again, you will be allowed 3 minutes. And Sarah, do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak?
We do. Your first speaker will be Walter Plesnick, and he'll be followed by Randy Jones.
Good evening, and thank you for the privilege of addressing the council. First time I've done this, I'm pretty nervous. Shouldn't be nervous after being a public school teacher and administrator for over 40 years, but I am. Plesnick, last name Pleasnick, 2114 Redwood Drive, Hemet, California, Seven Hills, proud resident. We moved here in 1984, my wife and son and I, and my wife became the adult literacy director for Hemet Public Library for several years. Our son was an undergraduate from Hemet High School and is now a pastor in the Temecula area. I'm not here to criticize members of the council. I would never do what you do. I think it's remarkable that you've dedicated such a large portion of your time, your life, and your expertise to running the city, and I think you do a marvelous job. We'll let other people criticize you. It won't be me. I didn't need glasses, and I didn't have gray hair when I moved here, but man, and I got hearing aids Friday, so if you say anything that I don't understand, speak louder. I don't know how to use them yet. Yeah, well, you know, people have asked me over the years, won't you serve on city council? I say, absolutely not. You could not pay me to do that job. But I do involve myself in the community in other ways. And this is just a little bit of background. I spend 99% of my money shopping in Hemet, and I believe that everybody who lives here should do that, including the employees. I don't belong to Sam's Club or Costco. I've been a teacher administrator with Hemet Unified until I retired in 2009. I've been teaching English since then. English is a second language and preparation for citizenship for Vermont Center College 3 days a week, and 2 days a week I substitute teach for Hemet Unified School District. 2 nights a week I teach water aerobics at LA Fitness Gym, and I've been an active membership of Bible Fellowship Church since 1984. I'm an avid supporter of arts in our valley. I'm on the boards of Hemet Community Concert Association and the Ramona Hillside Playhouse Board. I'm on the Publicity and Marketing Committee for Diamond Valley Arts Council. I was in the Ramona pageant for 7 wonderful years and sang with the Harmonizer Barbershop Chorus for 10 years. I try to attend as many civic events as I can fit into my schedule. I actively support Valley Restart and Birth Choice. I believe that I'm in a position to represent a large number of citizens when I talk to you tonight.
You've
I'm
got
not
45
sure.
seconds, though, because you did a little bit too much on the back.
Say again?
You have 45 seconds.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm one of the people who was a great advocate of Measure U, and I'm thankful that it passed. Pleased that we're spending our money to support Hemet Rocks. Pleased that we're reducing prostitution and drug trafficking in our valley. But why is it that not more shopping carts are being picked up on a daily basis? When I call the Hemet Rocks number, shopping carts are reported, but again and again, over a period of days and weeks, even up to a month before they're picked up. I spoke with Sergeant Ariano last summer, and I told him that I would ride in his truck, and I would show the men on what streets in Hemet we find most of our shopping carts. He did not respond. I heard nothing from him, so I went over to the city offices and wrote a report asking him to call me to discuss the matter. He never called. 3 weeks ago, and that was 3 weeks ago, I gave the report to a man named Rod Fuller, code enforcement officer. He promised me that he would give it to the sergeant. Last week, on another issue with rocks, I called code enforcement and asked them to pick up the mattresses and the furniture at the intersection of Elk Street between Chambers and Thornton.
Mr.
Still,
Presley,
they're not picked
you're
up.
way past your time, but we'll have staff contact you, okay?
I like that.
And try and address some of these issues for you, okay?
It'd be refreshing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next speaker is Randy Jones, and he'll be followed by Tammy Radomski.
Thank you, Council, for your service. My name is Randy Jones. I'm the president of Valley Restart. I have a special request. We have a grant that has come to our attention, and we have a deadline by December 20th. So I was wondering if the mayor or the city manager could give us just a letter of recommendation so that we can press forward with the full amount on the grant. So that's my request tonight. If you would consider that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Radomski, and I read an interesting article in the Press Enterprise this past week about early retirement for Morena Valley employees, and I thought that this might be something that we could also, as a city, consider to act proactively to keep our budget, help it get at least balanced. They offered for approximately, or they're considering offering for approximately 70 seasonal workers who are 50 years or older and have worked for 5 years with the city and are also at the top of their pay scale to take a one-time severance package, I guess you would call it, of $15,000 to $25,000. And I thought this was extremely, really proactive of them. They're not in a financial hardship case. They're just looking proactively, and I think that's why they're doing so well financially. So once I read that article, I started to look at our budgets and look specifically at per capita spending or per person spending. And I was a little bit alarmed. I was greatly alarmed, to put it honestly. And I don't want to read my figures because I don't know how accurate they are. But in looking at that, I was thinking the first order of business would be, with the existing budget, at least get it balanced. The second order of business is not picking on any one department. You know, I know that it's been years in the making of overspending, but every department needs to shrink drastically as far as spending goes. If you look at per capita, the cities that I would look at would be San Jacinto, which is our neighbor, and they're also in the valley. Menifee, which also started off as more of a retirement community, and then younger families have moved in the area, and then Morena Valley, just because they were named in the article. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And your last speaker is Pat Gregory.
Good evening, council members. I am appalled at the vote for Mayor Pro Tem that I've just witnessed. Mayor Wright provided a false presentation regarding the validity of our budget years ago in a video that is currently on the City of Hemet's online presence, if anyone's interested in taking a look at it. What she represented was not true. Several months ago, Mayor Wright used her position to inappropriately speak out on a personal issue and personally defend herself in a position where she's counsel. I think that was abuse of her power. At the last city council meeting, Mary Ann asked for a code of conduct for council members. She was handed a code of conduct for the public. I think, based upon what I just witnessed this evening, that this council needs to come up with their own code of conduct so that they can reassure the citizens of Hemet that they're not going to be the same self-serving council members that we've seen for the last 4 years. Thank you.
Is that the last speaker, sir? Thank you. Next order of business is public hearing. And we will ask for a staff report and, well, actually, the city manager asked for a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to begin the 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan process by requesting a public hearing be conducted to elicit comments of citizens, public agencies, and other interested parties regarding community needs and priorities. This is one of several opportunities as identified in the City of Hemet's Citizen Participation Plan to involve the community in the CDBG process. It's anticipated that the city will receive approximately $880,000 in CDBG funding for the 2019-2020 program year. Regulations established by HUD for receiving CDBG funding require citizen participation in evaluating funding needs and priorities. The funding needs and priorities identified here will be considered in the funding recommendations for the 2019-2020 program year and recorded in the same year's annual action plan. In addition, Council is being asked to reactivate the CDBG Ad Hoc Committee and name 2 members to serve in the selection process and funding recommendations of the eligible 2019-2020 CDBG applications. Application packets for the 1920 CDBG funding year were available on the city's website with a due date of December 3rd. Applications have been received, a total of 11, and are currently being reviewed. So tonight we ask that the council conduct a public hearing to elicit comments from the public and reactivate the ad hoc committee.
I'd like to open the public hearing and ask for comments of those in favor of the case. Is there anybody in favor of, that wants to speak in favor of the CDBG process? Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this process? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I want to talk about the ad hoc committee. I've been on it several years. Is there anybody else that wishes to be on the committee? Mike? Anybody else? Okay. So let the record show that Councilmember Percival and Mayor Pro Tem Brown will serve on the committee.
Thank you.
Is there anything else I need to do on that? Okay. Now we move to discussion and action items. Item number 17.
I would ask to pull that particular item. We have problems with several wells, and this needs to be evaluated in terms of all the wells we have.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm pulling that item. Thank you.
Item 18, Accelerated Retrofit Program, Brubaker Park.
Good evening, Council. Congratulations, Councilwoman Krupa, Mayor Pro Tem Brown, and thank you, Councilman Principal, former Mayor, and former Mayor Pro Tem Meyer. And congratulations, Mayor Wright. So we have item 18, which on November 13th at our last regular meeting, we had kind of discussed the details of a retrofit project that we are considering for Brubaker Park. The council had some questions about some agreements that I referenced when I was trying to explain kind of some of the history of the water that was being delivered there and whatnot. I provided those agreements to council prior to this meeting. Just as kind of a quick recap on the subject itself, what we are looking at tonight is the approval of an accelerated participation in the accelerated retrofit program. That program is a program that's offered by EMWD, where basically they will provide us the funding up front for the retrofit from groundwater, potable water, to recycled water at Brubaker Park. The city had previously entered into an interagency agreement with Eastern Municipal Water District. In that agreement, they had agreed to deliver water to us until such time as the recycled water was available at the park. So at this point, like we discussed previously, the recycled water is available at Brubaker Park, and we are looking to take advantage of the accelerated retrofit program to move off of the groundwater usage onto the recycled water and spread the cost of that project, which would be a general fund cost, to spread the project, kind of smooth the cost of that over a few years by participating in the program. So if there are any additional questions, if there's more details you want from the history we discussed previously, I'm happy to do my best.
Does council have any questions to ask at this time?
Thank you for the report, and thank you for adding the agreements that were agreed upon way back in the early days. In the first agreement that was dated July 8th of '96. The agreement was for 5 years and was going to terminate within 5 years, unless mutually extended. And then when I go through the addendums, which was addendum number 1 was in November 7th, 1997. There's no extension in that addendum. Then when I go to addendum number 2, dated the December 19th of '97, again, there's no extension of the agreement. And then the latest addendum number 3, dated November 30th, 2004, there is a paragraph in here where it says, whereas the July 8th, 1996 interagency agreement set forth an agreement term of 5 years from the date of execution, and as such arrangements are still in place, it is through mutual consent of both cities, both the city and EMWD, that such agreement is extended through, and then there's a blank line. So I would like some clarification from the city attorney, because there's no date set in here. This now becomes just an open-ended agreement forever and ever. Does that not make an agreement voidable, or if there's some other, please advise.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Wrestled with that over the years. Since the primary agreement itself has a condition in it that would stop Eastern's wheeling of water, that condition being their ability to provide recycled water to Brubaker Park, thus triggering our obligation to purchase recycled water and instill our facilities, The fact that we left a blank date in it indicates that the agreement's going to continue until they are able to deliver recycled water to the park and trigger our obligation. So it does end up being open-ended. It can't run forever, but we're not in a situation where it's run forever. It's extended out, a decade or so now? 14 additional years, yeah.
Well, it went 5 years without, the agreement expired because there was no extension within the 5-year period.
The effect of the 2004 would be to have extend the agreement on through its terms, and to my knowledge, the parties continue to provide or abide by the terms.
And I bring this up because at the last meeting, that when we talked about this, it was going to have an increase in cost to the city. Can you explain?
Sure. So we have been receiving, the water that we've been receiving at Brubaker Park, we already own. So all we've been paying is a wheeling fee. Had we not had the interagency agreement in place, we would have been paying the potable water cost for the last 20 years, essentially. So we have been paying it at the wheeling fee. The reason that there will be an increase in budget is because we will be moving onto recycled water, but the requirements of the program, it's basically a loan, if you will. They'll provide the cost of the construction up front, and then the way that the city repays that is through paying a modified potable rate, so it's less than the potable rate, but it's not as low yet as the recycled water rate. So that difference that we pay back over those few years is an increase compared to what we are paying today by just paying wheeling fees. If we were in a situation where Eastern said the agreement's void, we're going to charge you the cost of groundwater, of potable water, we would have an increase too. So it's, in terms of budget, it is an increase compared to what we are paying today. And then it will come back down just to that recycled water rate after that repayment period, which would still be, and I don't like to stand up here and say increase, but would still be an increase compared to just the wheeling fee that we're paying today. But basically the agreement for them to deliver our water to us ends with the availability of that recycled water.
It's available with us covering the cost to make it available, right?
Say that again.
It's available, but we still have to cover the cost to get it to the park. Because it's the recycled water pipes mains are not right by the park. They're a quarter mile away.
Not quite a quarter mile, just on the other side of the high school. So it's coming from Sanderson behind the high school. So a tenth of a mile. It's about $190,000 project. It's actually a little less than that. We got authorization for a little bit more funding, not knowing what the bids were going to come back looking like. So.
Can we use water from one of our wells that shut down to water the grass?
No, we do not have infrastructure in the area. This is outside of our district, and we do not. That's the reason that EMWD is wheeling to us.
Do we have a tank truck that we can pump the water into and then?
I like the thought, though.
Just thinking outside the box. That's all.
And just to reiterate, it's the same program, and I think that we mentioned this last time. It's the same program that we used at Heartland. It's the same program that we used at to go to recycled water at David Oltman Park. And I think there was
Oltman Park. Did you just say Oltman Park?
Yes, Oltman Park, Heartland, and I apologize, it's in my staff report. But
Does any other council have any questions?
I have comments. First of all, I have a question for you. Do you have to recuse yourself since you're an employee?
I was planning on doing that. I was planning on abstaining for that.
My question is, in good faith, we entered into an agreement with EMWD about this recycled water, and I have a hard time thinking that a prior council would have written EMWD a blank check, because there is no amount stated in there. I also know that state code says if it is economically viable, and with the condition of our finances, would you say that raising our water rates for recycled water instead of fresh water is economically viable?
I'm basing my recommendation off of the
I
commitment.
can ask our finance director if she thinks, what does our attorney think? Is that economically viable?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Councilmember.
Well, the state code, the state water code says that we don't have to take reclaimed water unless it's economically viable. So,
If we had an option, use non-potable water that we could provide to our own system, that we could deliver there, then that might be the case. It's my understanding we don't have that option. Our only option is to provide or pay for potable water from Eastern's facilities, which is tremendously more expensive than recycled water. So
it's supposed to be, but in this case, we're actually going to increase our costs.
in
So
this case,
that doesn't
we're
seem
going
economically viable to me.
In this case, we're going to avoid paying the potable water cost by repaying recycled water cost, because the special deal that Eastern provided to the city years ago simply to wheel our Fruitvale water to us goes away. We don't have independent facilities to pump our water allocation down from where the Fruitvale water is. That's about
But
a
regardless
$5
if
million
it's wheeled or not,
CIP
we're
project.
getting used water
Recycled
for a
water.
higher rate,
Correct.
because it's cheap, it would be
We're-
cheaper.
We're getting recycled water that's cheaper than potable water. The cost to pump our own water, our Fruitvale water, if we didn't do it through Eastern, I don't know what the cost is, because we have to have a pipeline to do it, or we have to enter into an agreement for Eastern to pump that water down to the park for us.
Well, let me just be a little more frank. I feel like EMWD is twisting our arm and forcing us to do something that is not legally okay. If we were rebuilding a park, or if we were building a new park, they could come in and say, we are requiring this water, the recycled water system. But we're not building a new park.
Well, the park was new at the time the agreement was entered into. And
That expired several times over. That has a no date on it. I mean, I would hate to question attorney services, but how did that get to today?
well, I
You know,
can't
you see
speak
it's
for
like a
anything-
multifaceted problem.
I can't speak for anything that happened before 2004. I don't know why the 2004 agreement wasn't, a date wasn't inserted, but I didn't draft it, my firm didn't draft it, and none of us signed it. There was a period of
But
time
it's
when the city manager
2018
happened
and
to
we're here.
send it. Yeah, that's right.
So if it expires every 5 years, is there a contract?
It doesn't expire every 5 years. The 2004 amendment says that it stays in effect until such time as recycled water facilities become available for irrigation purposes, whichever is first. And since the city didn't insert a date, but both parties signed it, then the agreement stays in effect until recycled water facilities become available for irrigation purposes.
So prior council did write a blank check.
I can't speak to that. This
Well,
agreement
I
was
mean,
entered into
it is what it
longer
is.
before I
So
was here.
it's either we are doing whatever they say because that's our only option, or we're going to say no because it's not viable. That's water code. That's
But
state water code.
I don't know what water code you're referring to, but
Well,
I'm not sure what other options the
in the terms of
council
agreement,
has.
on paragraph 4 of the agreement, it says future availability and use of reclaimed water as soon as it becomes economically feasible, EMWD intends to construct. So they're even using that.
Yeah, economically feasible for Eastern to construct, because it refers to their extension of the recycled water facilities. I cannot go back and second guess why the council entered into the agreement at the time. All that I can opine on is what the agreement says and what the city committed to do. The city committed to pay for and install recycled water when Eastern had facilities available to provide it to the park.
at whatever cost they wanted to charge us.
There was
Currently.
no cost stated, so it's
My other
whatever
question is,
their ongoing
the
cost is.
27 acre feet that we're saving, right, because it's not going to be wheeled over anymore,
Right.
what's happening with that water?
So that continues to be a carryover for us. We still own that water, and that our bank that doesn't come out of our bank of water because it's not being used there anymore. So we gain that.
And Eastern's going to hold it for us?
Well, it's groundwater, part of the groundwater management plan. It's wrapped up with the stipulated judgment and.
You see, like, we're not getting compensated. If we're going to take our 27 acre feet and go sell it to someone else, and then it was going to help pay for this, then I could see that, because it's ours. But are they just going to keep it in their pot of water?
No, we own the water. We own the water. So they don't keep the water. It
Based
goes.
in the groundwater basin, and the water master keeps an accounting of it. So
Right.
the Fruitvale credit doesn't go away. It's always part of our water allocation. And because we haven't utilized all of it, it continues to accrue. We have quite a bit of what's called a carryover credit in addition to purchased water. If we had the facilities to reach the water, which is in the San Jacinto Basin, and pipe it down to the field, we probably could do that if we had an agreement with Eastern to do it. The city has never approached that or looked at that. We don't have the facility to do it. The alternative would be to go to Eastern and say, hey, we don't want to use recycled water to irrigate our park. We want to use our potable water to irrigate the park. The problem with that is there is a number of things in California law that encourage cities not to use potable drinking water for irrigation purposes, to be good stewards of the water that we have in the valley and as part of our groundwater management program. So is it financially feasible? It appears to be, based on the information we have, the best financially feasible solution to provide irrigation for the park. The city doesn't have to irrigate the park.
At a higher rate than we're paying now. But, okay.
But that's irrelevant because the rate that we're paying now is going away. And it was a fictitious rate to begin with.
So how's the water going to get to the drinking fountains? My kids play baseball there.
There's still potable
We're
water.
going to still wheel some water?
No, that would be Eastern's potable water. The park's in Eastern's municipal water service district, which means they have the right to provide water, and the operator of the park, which is the city, has to pay for their water. If it was in our municipal water system, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We could continue to provide our own water to it that we pump up out of the ground. But because it's in Eastern's service area, they have the right, under the law, to require us to use their water services. They're giving us the opportunity to provide recycled water to the park so we don't have to use potable water at a lower cost than potable water.
But the financially feasible part is the part you're missing out of that. And so
it is,
the people that can do the math can say that us paying more for recycled water.
Use recycled water than
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. But she told us last meeting that it's going to be more.
It is going to be more than the special deal that is going away. That is correct.
That is budgeted
But that
today.
deal is gone. Under the original terms of the agreement, that's no longer being offered by Eastern. If the council wants, you can always say, no, we're not approving this. We want to go back to Eastern and see if there's some kind of wheeling agreement where they'll allow us to use our water credits that we have built up to wheel that water through, but then we would be using our own potable water and drawing down our strategic water services to irrigate the park instead of using recycled water, which the state encourages us to use for irrigation.
Well, I feel like EMWD is taking advantage of us and we're paying for their failed recycling plant. That's what I think.
You're certainly entitled to your opinion.
Question for the city attorney. Looking at addendum 3 to the agreement that was entered into on November 30th of 2004, in the paragraph that has the blank line where it says the agreement is to be extended through and there's nothing filled in. Then it says, comma, or at such time as recycled water facilities become available for irrigation purposes, whichever occurs first. The operative word being or.
Correct.
Since, would it be a correct legal interpretation that since no date was inserted into that blank line, then the only option would be the rest of that sentence? It says when the recycled water facilities become available. Correct? Thank you.
Council have any other questions?
Oh. Any other questions? Comments?
My question is also for Eric. In the event that we said no to this contract, would Eastern have every right to charge us the full amount of potable water plus wheeling to irrigate Brubaker Park?
Yes.
Thank you. Which would take it past the $1,094 per acre foot instead of the $488 that we would be paying for recycled water.
Yes, the city would have the right not to draw the water,
Right. We could let,
but if you wanted to draw water, then if you don't hook up to the recycled water, you have to draw potable water.
then we draw at full rate.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? None said. We will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Please vote.
Can't vote that many times.
So that motion's 2-2 with one abstention. The motion fails. Does council like to do an alternative motion? Well, you could move to reject the contract, or you could move to table it to another day, or you could give direction to the city manager to pursue some other type of agreement with EMWD.
Should I say it on the record? Further conversation with the city manager in Eastern. And you can make the motion.
I'll move that we take a look at this, a future date to be determined.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Please vote.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So the item itself was participation in the program.
Right.
So that is, it sounds like we're talking more about the interagency contract than participation in the program. So we're going to get back together then, the city manager and I, to talk about the contract to see where we...
Council has tabled consideration of the entire thing until a future date to be
Okay.
determined by the city manager. Correct.
All right.
And bear
Thank
in
you,
mind
council.
that the option might not be viable after a short time anyway.
Yeah.
And, okay, if you could vote on that motion, please.
Oh, thought I already did.
The
I'm
motion.
lost now. The motion to table. I thought we did already.
Future date to be determined.
Correct.
No, we didn't.
Okay, so the motion
Postpone.
to postpone
Future date.
the future dates.
And I seconded it.
Linda seconded.
I already erased it.
Oh, did you?
Do it again?
Somebody hasn't voted.
Yeah.
I'm going to abstain anyway.
Okay.
And that passes
Passes 4-0-1.
one. We move on to item 19, Highway Safety Improvement Program grant funding for the traffic signal upgrade project. Sudi.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The Highway Safety Improvement Program funds projects that increase safety and efficiency of our roadways. This funding of $985,000 and $900 has been awarded to the city of Hemet that will provide certain improvements for the city's traffic signals. In particular, to add LED lights at intersections, add pedestrian countdown buttons, ADA accessible pedestrian push buttons for all the traffic signals in the city, and then controllers for most of the traffic signals. Upon council's approval of this funding, engineering staff will move forward with completion of the design and submittal to Caltrans for approval. I'm available if you have any questions.
I have one question. Looking at the document from Caltrans on this, whoops, I just lost it. It specifies some specific signalized intersections. It says along Costin, Dominigani Parkway, Kirby, etc. Are we restricted to those specific locations based on them being recorded here, or do we have any options to consider other intersections?
We are limited to the ones that have been identified in the grant application package. If there is additional funding, we could request, let's say if the bids come low, we could ask Caltrans to allow us to consider other traffic signals, if that happens, if that situation comes up.
That's what I thought you would say. But thanks for clarifying.
I have a couple questions on that too. Do any of, this is only along those streets, so does it include the intersections with Florida Avenue?
I believe all the intersections on Florida Avenue, the traffic signals belong to the state.
Okay. My next question is another intersection that's named is Mountain and at Saboba. I know that is one of the intersections that's also in the mitigation through Saboba, through the casino, the building of the new casino. That funding has to go in to improve certain intersections in Hemet. And I was just wondering whether or not that intersection would be exempt from this particular funding and paid for through mitigation with the new casino funding, which would save us some money that maybe we could do some additional things in the city.
I don't remember the exact numbers from Saboba, but from the Saboba agreement, they have a fair share for certain traffic signals. And depending on what that fair share is and when that would happen, it may or may not cover the full cost, but I can look into it and let you know.
As long as we keep that in mind, that would be great.
Yes.
Because if we can save money there, then we can add money to some additional signage in Hemet. Thank you.
Any other questions by council? I have a motion.
Move approval of staff recommendation. I'll second it.
I have a first and a second.
Mayor, you do want to remember to ask for public comments on
Oh, that's right.
these before.
That's right. Is there anybody that wants to speak on behalf of this item? Hearing none. Can we just ask for a vote?
Do you have a motion?
Right. Please vote. Before you leave, I want to thank the department for going after this grant funding.
I have a second item after this.
Pardon?
I have the next item too.
Okay, yes, you do. Item number 20, Active Transportation Program grant funding for the Hemet Valley Bikeway Project.
This is another federal grant that was awarded to the city of Hemet in the amount of $2,228,000. Through this grant, we will be able to improve bike lanes, sidewalks, curb ramps, some street crossings, and provide bicycle lockers. And they will be along Palm Avenue, Whittier, Johnston, Gilbert, and Chambers, into based on certain sections that are indicated in the staff report. And upon council's approval of this funding, we will move forward to talking with Caltrans and getting authorizations to move forward with the design and environmental aspects of the project.
Also have any questions on this item?
It's just good that we finally got it, because I think Hemet and San Jacinto both applied for this type of bike connector thing at the same time, and San Jacinto got their couple million a couple years ago, and now finally we got ours so we can connect everybody. So it's good work, and thank you.
And I'm sure council would be very interested once we find out the priority of the project, and we're told at what stages or what items, what priority will happen between the areas that are being serviced. So it would be helpful for us to know that, so that we can provide that information to our constituents as well as the time comes to fruition for that item.
Sure. We can provide that to you. The areas that this grant will help fund are the streets that were mentioned in the staff report.
Right, but they're not going to all happen at once, correct? Or are they?
They all have to be done as under one project. So we'll move forward with all of them at the same time.
All right. Okay, that's terrific. And I'm sure the schools will be grateful, because they're near the schools.
Several
Chambers,
schools.
yeah.
Near several schools.
Fine.
Just one question. How did we arrive at these 5 locations? Because I know that there's more than 5 in the city that need some improvements.
We need to show that there is a pattern and there will be a connectivity. So there are several schools that would benefit from these routes. And at the same time, this will help us connect to San Jacinto and the State Street and their bike paths. So it has to take the overall region into place too. And as you've mentioned, we have a lot more need, and so we would definitely put in more applications. But it also depends on the goals of the grant for that particular funding cycle. And so they'll try to match so we could have a better chance of winning.
Thank you.
We also, to add to that, actually did a demonstration project, so to speak, with San Jacinto Valleywide and Hemet residents, and had people standing on street corners counting numbers of bicycle riders and pedestrians in many, many, many areas. That was, 3 years ago? I think that
How many years ago?
At least 3. That we did that and came up with those conclusions that there were bike riders and pedestrians and the actual numbers. It was a big project, and it was kind of fun to do because we all stood on street corners and counted people.
Okay, with that, like a motion, please.
I'll move to approve staff's recommendation.
We have a first and a second. Please vote. And that passes 5-0. Next item is item number 21, recommendation by fire.
Mayor Pro Tem, congratulations. Members of the City Council, before you is an item to, regarding the lease of a public fire station facility and agreement for air medical transport services. We're asking you tonight to approve the attached lease agreement between the City of Hemet and Air Methods Corporation, Mercy Air Ambulance, for purposes of maintaining flight crew dedicated quarters at Fire Station 4, and subsequent authorize the city manager to sign and execute the attached agreement. Would like to give a little background. This original agreement was initiated in May of 2010. It was a public-private partnership with the intent of improving aeromedical response here in the Valley. We had an original dedicated prior provider, Life Flight, who provided that response out of Hemet Valley Hospital. There was a reorganization of that company. We were fortunate to attract Mercy when they reorganized to come to our city. This original agreement expired in 2015. We're bringing this forth. It's been revised. Another component of this is the discussion item for a future landing pad. It's known as a helicopter parking area. But we've been in constant contact and negotiations, discussions, if you will, with Air Methods. And we've had a recent discussion with our city manager with regard to the benefits of such a partnership, especially with the landing pad. I'd like to give you a little background. The current lease agreement, as it's indicated in the agreement you have before you, is $37.50 monthly. It'll generate $45,000 yearly that goes directly to the general fund. Since the original inception of the agreement between 2010 and 2015, it generated $225,000, which went directly to the general fund. I want to just focus real briefly on what's important from an operational perspective. We have a fantastic EMS system. American Medical Response, AMR, is an important element to our rapid EMS response to our citizens. We also have to address those issues when we have a traffic accident or somebody that may have major trauma. Golden hour, getting the patient to the appropriate facility within that golden hour and rapidly transport them to that facility is key. Two of our level 2 trauma centers in the area, Inland Valley, which is in Wilnomar, is approximately 25.8 ground miles, 37-minute transport by ground. That's on a non-traffic high-impact time period. Riverside University Health Systems in Moreno Valley is 21.7 miles with 34-minute average transport time. The key is that rapid transport survivability is directly tied into that, getting them within the hour. I want to just give you a real brief example of a recent success story that highlights the importance of air transport. We had a severely injured traffic accident victim who was involved in a head-on traffic accident at Florida and Lake. A victim was entrapped. We had rapid response from HFD, HPD, as well as our partners from CAL FIRE and AMR. On their arrival, the patient was entrapped. It required an extensive amount of extrication efforts by our first arriving fire units. Our firefighter paramedics initiated advanced life support. The patient is extracted. Our battalion chief took command, requested an air ambulance. Mercy Air responded from their base at Hemet Ryan, landed at a pre-designated landing zone, one of several, I might add, that we have pre-identified in our city. Paramedics continued critical advanced life support. We transferred the care of that patient to Mercy Air flight crew. Flight nurse and paramedic continued the care, and the patient was transferred to an area trauma center. I want to share with you the outcome of that. Patient had severe intrathoracic bleed, head injury, flailed chest, lacerated spleen. Patient was delivered to the trauma center, was in surgery for 6 hours in the trauma center. She received 19 units of blood. This patient had 5% chance of survival. I'm pleased to report this patient survived. And it's a direct result of a coordinated system coming together, all elements of that, including our air transport. I thought that was relevant given the discussions that you have before you in the important decision you'll be making tonight. I want to talk briefly to the ground transport versus air transport. This does not minimize the importance of AMR. They're an equal, important, critical element of that. This is adding another element at no cost to our city, which is important. And with that, I'll be open for any questions you might have.
Council have questions?
Yes, thank you for that report and also for the recent incident that we used Mercy Air. Currently, where is the helicopter located at Hemet Ryan right now?
The helicopter rents a space from Hemet Ryan at the Hemet Ryan Airport, right adjacent to the CAL FIRE air tanker base. The crew is physically located at Fire Station 4.
So in a request for that service, the crew currently has to go from quarters up there at Station 4, and they go to the helipad.
That's correct.
And so they have to drive a vehicle from quarters there?
They have a transport van that's there to take the crew. They have a crew of three, a pilot, flight nurse, and a flight paramedic. They get in the van and they drive over to the airport, and they spool up. They take an average. Last year we did some time studies, about 22 minutes from the time that they actually get activated, get in the van, go to the airport, activate the helicopter, and get ready to lift off. This past 6 months they've been doing time studies, and we've got that. I say we because our firefighters have been training with Mercy, an average of a 14-minute response time from the base to the airport. We believe by co-locating the landing pad at the fire station, we'll be able to reduce that even further to a 5 to 8 minute response time. The timing of that response time is absolutely critical. From the time that we make the request to the time they process it to the time the crew gets to the helicopter, they spool up and they go airborne, is the most critical piece that we need to do everything we can to reduce the impact of that time frame.
Well, thank you for that information, because you mentioned earlier about the golden hour of survivability, and obviously in severe trauma cases in combat in the Middle East, we've seen demonstrative survivability within that golden hour. So I would think that it only makes good sense to locate that helispot as close to Station 4 as possible, because you're going to probably buy back 10 minutes of that golden hour just in shortening that delivery time to the helicopter from Station 4. So.
And to be frank, Mayor Pro Tem, not only does it benefit the citizens, but as the police chief and myself both worry about our troops. So if, God forbid, we have a police officer or firefighter that's injured and we need to get to a burn center or a trauma center, we have rapid medevac there to take care of our personnel. But it'll benefit not only our city, but the entire region.
Anything that we can do to shorten response time is a positive thing for everybody. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council?
I have some questions. How much have they been paying us a month already?
$37.50.
And we're just going to keep it the
Yes.
same?
We evaluated that. We're actually competing with RDA, who manages the airport. We've been in constant contact with them. They were being courted, if you will, to come over to the airport. We made a good, strong argument that we'd like to continue the partnership